when you played at Oregon, years, who the head coach was, who your position coach was, what your position was, how you came to Oregon?
Well, to start, I grew up playing basketball my whole life. Never played football, and had a really good friend in high school, Kylie Wong, that got me into playing football. So I played my senior year and realized I was good at it. So I went down to California, went to a junior college, but the whole time I knew I wanted to come back to Oregon. So I sent letters out, tried to get in touch with everyone, and I finally got a reply saying, we'd like to have you come walk on up here.
And what year was that?
That was 97. So I came up, met with Don Pelham, and just went from there. Went to a tryout and made the team right away, and played inside linebacker the first year, and went to outside linebacker after that. Coach Bellotti was the head coach back then.
So you see 97?
97 was my first year. I was there 97, 98, 99.
And who was this, that linebacker that really got you motivated also from Kansas City?
Oh, Jeff Simpson.
Yeah.
And Dietrich Moore became really good friends.
Dietrich Moore went on to be a graduate assistant. I think he's still in coaching.
He is. Yeah.
And so 97, 98, 99, what bowl games?
Vegas Bowl was the first year, but I wasn't on the team yet. I could practice but not travel. And then the Aloha Bowl was the next year, which Christmas Day, that was fun. Be over there.
Yeah, that was the notorious game which Rick Neuheisel punted on.
Tried to run up the score.
Yeah.
We came back.
The Ducks were being spanked soundly as I recall.
At halftime.
Yeah.
It wasn't a quiet locker room.
Yeah. So then, what year did you finish up?
99.
Okay.
And then went on after that, moved down to Vegas with Kylie and tried to get into some tryouts beyond college, and that didn't work. And you kind of realize, when you see guys at that level, you realize the gap that there was. But it was the best 3 years of my life at the time. You get to meet a lot of amazing people, still in contact with them. It's not even close to, but similar, the same concept as the military. It's a brotherhood. You're always in contact with each other. You do anything for each other.
Now, what are you doing now?
Now I just moved back to Oregon, and I work for a company. We do the 3M paint protection film on cars. So went from football and sociology in college to putting 3M on cars.
And married, family?
No, not married, no kids.
So still there's a lot of lucky young ladies out there just waiting to get your name.
I'd like to think so.
Well, sitting to your right is your dad, Ivan
Yes.
Davis. Ivan Davis was, when I first met him, was an 05 Bravo
B4S.
B4S, a Special Forces qualified communicator. And we met up in
Portland with the 12th, yeah, the reserve group.
And so, tell me now, what year were you born?
1977.
1977. How much and when did you first become aware that your dad had been in Special Forces?
I don't remember exactly when, but I was older. I was in high school, right?
Right.
I did a project at school and started asking questions and found out. And then I found was it a Foot Locker? Or
Yes.
what was that?
Foot Locker.
He had something in the attic that I opened and saw all this stuff, and
Yeah.
that's when it really hit me.
Then I was invited to North Eugene at his high school to talk about Vietnam. I had videos, slides. I was able to take my captured weapon there at the time, and I presented an hour of what it was like in Vietnam to his class.
And you had no clue.
Well, I had a clue. I didn't know the level of it. You know, I didn't know how. To be honest with you, I didn't really know what SF was then. You know, we were never really told.
Yeah.
None of my friends had any military backgrounds or families, so he didn't talk about it much. So it was when you found out, you know, initially you were just like, oh my God.
Ivan, when did you join the Army?
June 30th, 1966. I was in California going to college, and in '64 I met a friend of mine. He was with the 7th, and he talked me into it, and he told me that it's something that's never, if you have, and this is a goal I have. I've talked to the boys that if you have that opportunity, if you've never tried it, you need to try it, because if you try and you succeed, that's another step in life. So Larry was telling me all about the Special Forces, and he was with the 7th TDY to Vietnam in the early 60s, and I knew I was going to get drafted. We still had a draft then, so when I finished my college, then I went to Los Angeles, took the physical. I knew I was going to get drafted, so I went back to Roseburg, and I talked to the lady. She says, I took the physical, now what's my notice? And she said, within a day or two, you'll get your draft notice. Well, I went down that afternoon to the recruiter, and I enlisted with what Larry told me, an 05B radio operator and airborne. That was a prerequisite, and then I was able to move on from there.
Where did you go to basic training?
I started at Fort Ord for 10 days, then they moved me up to Fort Lewis, and then I was completed there, and then I went back to Fort Ord for radio and to learn the Morse code and what it was. Then I went to jump school in Fort Benning, Georgia for 3 weeks, and then in January of '67, I was on my way to Fort Bragg, North Carolina for SF training.
And there's where you went through the Special Forces training, and then when did you go?
I graduated from I got my Green Beret in July 1st of '67. I was assigned to the 6th. I was there for 2 weeks. I called Mrs. Alexander in Washington. I told her I wanted to be I didn't join the Army to stay in the States. So 2 weeks later, I had my orders for Vietnam, and I went to Vietnam in September of '67. And I come home in last part of December '68.
Okay, and you were assigned to the Special Forces group, and when you got in country, then?
Well, when I flew in, there was 4 of us on the same orders, 4 radio operators, and so we got to the Trang, and we were inquired about, okay, here's the map, where do you want to go? They need 2 openings in I-Corps, which is up along the DMZ, and then two down in the Delta. So I told the sergeant major, I said, I'll climb mountains before I go in the swamps. And so the 2 of us volunteered to go to I-Corps, 2 to Delta, 4 Corps, and then I spent all 16 months in I-Corps.
Okay, and were you on an A-team, or were you in
I started out as an A-team. I was out at A-104 Hatan, and I spent there, but then my commo skills allowed me, because commo was in great demand, and we lost a lot of commo people, either KIA or WIA. So I was able to travel to other camps to assist them in their commo until we got qualified commo people there. And then I was working the radio when Long Bay got overrun, the first time in the war that they brought in tanks. So I worked the radio, and I met a lot of people later on that survived that. And then I went out to Camduck to help them before they got overrun. And then I was at Hatan, and then there's about 4 different radio operators come out, and they didn't last. They were either killed or wounded. So for almost 2 months, I was to live in the bunker per my CO, because if you stick your head out and you get shot, then there would be no communication. So then after we got almost overrun in August, we were under siege by the North Vietnamese Army for almost 30 days. And then after that was over, then I went to Australia for a week. Then I went to the Mike Force, Mobile Reactionary. And I really thought that was what I wanted to do, because my CO went there, but he was wounded at Hatan. And then I got there, then the C-Team commander knew my background, so I got pulled up there to work the radios until they got qualified. The Major McMullen from the Mike Force wanted me back there, so I was back and forth the whole time. So I really didn't go on a mission with Mike Force except a Thong Duck, And then I got chewed out for that because I was didn't have much time left in country.
Yeah. And again, communicators in high demand.
Oh yeah, the commo is. We lost a lot of the 05B4Ss over there. A lot of them.
For a lot of people may not, you know, they would have pictures of Vietnam and have a mental image of Vietnam that soldiers would be sometimes when they're out in the field, but they would have air support, they would have artillery support, they would have, sometimes they'd have hot chow brought out to them. But that isn't always the case in an A camp or camps that you're at. What was day-to-day life like for you?
Well, being in charge, being a commo man, I was in charge of not only the commo but the antennas. I was in charge of receiving, sending messages as encrypted. I was also in charge of all the lighting system. I had the generators I had to keep running, the wiring in the camp. Then I had to answer. I had to have all the stuff ready for our briefings in the morning. And then when we have people on patrol, I was to monitor the radio. We had 2 patrols out at all times. I monitored the radios every couple hours for comm checks to make sure they were fine, and that was on a 24/7 basis. So being the only radio operator there, I pretty well stayed in camp a lot of the times.
Well, with an A team, of course, that's only 12 men, and
Right.
you were obviously there were either indigenous forces. Who all were your forces?
Well, we had there was 12 of us. Actually, there was 13. We had a PSYOPs officer, and then we had about 500 SIDs, which is civilian indigenous people. Mountain Yards. I had a Mountain Yard interpreter. I had a Chinese Nung interpreter, and you put your life in their hands. They worked with us 24/7. I mean, when we were getting hit in August, my Chinese Nung was right by my side the whole time. Nobody could get through the front door of my bunker unless they went through him.
And of course, when you're in those situations, you really don't have a lot of firepower. You really don't have a lot of extra necessities, certainly. And you mentioned when you're in an indigenous force, really that team has to become quickly accustomed and up to speed with the culture of the people, because it's really that interpersonal relationship that you develop that is essential to your personal security.
Well, the thing about when you first get to a camp, you have to get their trust. If you don't trust them and they don't trust you, you don't stay there. They get rid of you. With 12 of us and 400 or 500 of them, and you build good rapport just by adapting to their culture. They're there because they're trying to protect our country. We're there to help them survive their country. We train, we equip, we feed them, we clothe them, but they're there is to make their life easier if at all possible. And they had so many elements against them. The South Vietnamese didn't like the Mountain Yards. The North Vietnamese didn't like the Mountain Yards, but they bonded with us so much. I mean, they were one of us.
And when you talk about that, when you talk about those hatreds and those conflicts, those are conflicts that aren't recent conflicts.
No.
They go back centuries.
Exactly. And you know, ever since when we decided to pull out, the Mountain Yards went back to being persecuted. I mean, the North didn't like them, South didn't like them, so we brought a bunch of them over here, and they've grown up. They're very intelligent people. They've got the opportunity to go to college, and they're excelling in the outside world. But I think living on the A camp was something else, because there's only 12 of us. Our only resupply is helicopter. We had artillery support. We had air support. And I mean, I was in the underground for so long. I went out one time, we heard firing on our OP, and then we looked up there and they were waving at us. Okay, we waved back. Well, then they started lobbing mortars. Well, that's not the right thing to do. So we started checking, and the NVA had taken over the OP to shoot down at us. So it was a 30-day struggle, and we almost got overrun. And we called in the Mike Force, we called in the Navy, the Air Force. We had so many B-52s. We had the F-4 fighters. I mean, we really had some trouble. So then the Air Force called me one time. They said, hey, we have some ordnance left over. What should we do with it? And so I looked at the map and I said, here's a creek coming down, river coming down around this OP. Drop it there. I had no idea what was out there. So they went in and they have 4 sorties and they dropped it all. And then the next day we went out and we found some tanks that we destroyed because they were coming that way. We had no idea. So we wiped them out. But right before that, the Battleship New Jersey was off Quang Ngai. So I was talking to them. I said, why don't you lob some shells over to us? And they said, well, if we do, you're friendly. So I said, if you don't, we're not going to be friendly anymore. So we had the New Jersey fire some shells for us over the camp in order to hit some of where they were coming around to get us. It was very successful.
And those are the 16-inch guns that they're firing.
Big suckers.
Yeah.
And you can hear them coming, and you know that once they hit the ground, they just shook the ground. But it was detrimental. They saved our life.
Just in chatting with us before we did, I always remember a story that we talked about up in the headquarters area where we would talk about different things we did. And I got the story wrong where it was the tanks were sitting on the bunker. And for some reason, I always thought if you were calling out that the tank was on the bunker, that's not correct.
That's not correct.
Tell the story.
Well, Long Bay, which is up in I-Corps, right by the Ashaw Valley, it was a couple clicks from the Laotian border. It was a Special Forces camp, brand new, and it just got built by the Seabees. We had 2 other ones up there previously that got overrun by the North Vietnamese, and we lost a lot of people up there. So the villagers kept coming in, telling the Captain Willoughby at the 101 that there's some kind of noise over there. Every night they hear these motors start up. Well, then they started investigating, and they were dropping rocks in the river so they could drive across there like a trail. So they notified C-Team, we notified General Westmoreland's staff that something's going on. Well, that night they brought in tanks. First time in the war that they used Russian-made P-7, I think 76 tanks, and our weapons were inferior to that. We shot them, we penetrated, we hit the first round, but it wouldn't penetrate through. And I think all total there was 13 or 15 tanks in there, and we destroyed a bunch of it. But in the Kama bunker, Sergeant Dooms and some of the other ones met down there, and they dropped a tank was rolling across the top. And we were talking on the radio, and then they heard this really voice that said, hey, everybody okay down there? Come on, you're friendly up here, come on out. It was perfect English. And nobody would answer him. Well, we don't know who it was, but I think it was a Russian thing. But then they were destroying all of their personnel, all their secret stuff. And then the Air Force came in, they said on the 4th run, it's going to be a dummy run. So when the 4th sortie, as soon as we'll let you know, you get out and you run over to the helicopters to get out of there. So the 4th sortie come in and they got out and they ran over there. We had the Mike Force come in from the old 101 camp, and we had 2 people there that was awarded the Medal of, they earned the Medal of Honor, and posthumously, and it's just a fantastic story of what these people did, how they survived, and what's the word, heroism? Yeah, heroism of these individuals. In fact, there's one guy right now, Harvey Brand, he's here, and he was one of the Mike Force people at Long Bay.
Yeah. When the guy was there and he was in the and comm was done.
We were
not by telephone, not by cell phone, not by SATCOM or satellite communications. Were you doing it by? It was.
We were talking Morse code at first. Then we went to a single sideband, and we were talking verbally because we didn't have time to encrypt all the messages coming through, because they were saying what was going on. Dooms was, and then we were letting everybody else know that we got major problems up there. So then we were really trying to direct everything. So, but that was all voice at the time. But normally our mode of communication was all CW, Morse code.
And for those people who may not understand what CW code is, that's sitting there hitting
yes. The diddy dum dum ditties.
Yeah, and and sometimes when you don't have a generator powered up, that means someone's got a
The hand crank.
hand crank
Right.
generator, and you know, this talk about a workout. That's a great one.
Well, but we were very fortunate because the camps were sophisticated enough that in my camp, for example, 104, I had two 10 kW generators. I had a spare 5 kW. Then I had one hooked up strictly to the combo bunker that if they took out the 10 to take out the camp, I had my auxiliary there to where we could keep transmitting. And we didn't need to have to use a hand grinder. And we worked that way. Plus,
Luckily.
luckily, plus we had the PRC 25. We could talk to the outside force. Then we had the ERC 10s, which we could talk to the Air Force for help.
You know, it always amazes me when I hear these stories. Had the enemy known
Yeah.
what it was like, one giant push, or they would have rounded up, because they have, particularly if you're sitting there in the bunker, you're very vulnerable, concentrated fire.
Yeah.
And particularly when there's, I can't think of anything that would be more scarier than have tanks in the area.
Well, it's
With those ineffective tank weapons.
and you don't. And so after Long Bay got overrun, all the camps were. Some of them had dug a moat around there, and we had new armament, and we were firing them. There were advanced laws to do that, and so we used to set up tank ambushes. But when we got hit in August of '68, we didn't have that opportunity. They hit us too fast, and we struggled, and we lost. I had 4 replacements for commo for me, and I lost all 4 of them, and so I was really kind of stuck there. And then pretty soon the siege was broken to where I could do it. But I was working the radio 24/7 almost 2 months, and you fall asleep and you hear your call sign with the radio, then you wake right up and you start all over again. You know, you just go on adrenaline. Yeah.
Yeah, sleep is sort of you can actually sleep when you walk.
You can do that. You can fall asleep and still copy Morse code. I found that very easy because when they talk and if they use your call sign, you wake up, but you can be in a state of animation until you hear your call sign. You don't let it. You just let it go past you. But I kept getting called into the C detachment, and then I would have to fill in with them, and then I go back out to camp. I didn't mind. I was whatever they wanted me to do. That was my job, and I did it. And I really enjoyed doing it. And if they wanted me again, if I was able, I would do it again.
And in the rank structure out there, there's not a bunch of generals. There's not a bunch of colonels. There's not any majors. Maybe a major or two.
No, but not with us.
There was just captains. And
We had a captain, 2 lieutenants, then 10 enlisted men. And the reason it was set up like that is that we could split in 2 units and we could break down. And we found out that you could trust everyone out there. You put your trust into because they save your life. You go back to back and to fight off anything. You didn't have to worry about anybody not pulling their own weight. And it was when you get in a combat situation, it's very scary until you actually do that. And then you might find out who your friends are.
You remember your team sergeants?
Oh, let's see. Well, the Captain Gus Reagan was the CO. Lieutenant Bain Ziegel was the XO. The one I really remember was Thaddeus Sosniak. He was from Germany, and he was there, and I really respected that guy. And when our team house got hit with the rocket, Chinese-made rocket, it killed him. It killed my replacement radio operator from McMinnville, and we had 3 ordnance people out there. It killed them. But we had Sergeant Zinkfoos.
You just left.
Huh?
And you just left.
Yeah, I just left. We were standing in the team house doing a conversation because we had unexploded ordnance in our camp. So they sent out the Army ordnance team. They were sitting around, and I just walked out of the team house going back to the comma bunker when 3 rounds hit the team house, and it killed and wounded everybody in there. And then I was just walking by the mortar pit, and I jumped in, and we took a round, and I got blown out of the mortar pit. Then I got my senses and jumped up and ran to the comma bunker and said, "This is my life. I'm standing here." But then we had Sergeant Gleason, Sergeant Holman, Sergeant Duke, Sergeant Miller. He was my commo operator for a while. Then he was eventually killed in Kamduk and Noctavuk when they got overrun. Sergeant Melvin Thornton, he lives up in Port Townsend, the medic. He's the one that patched me up a couple times. Sergeant Dumas, another medic. So, you know, we rotated a lot, but terrific individuals.
And some of your senior NCOs probably had been. Did you still have some of the old European guys that held their cigarettes like this?
Master Sergeant Zozniak, he did that. He came from the 10th, and he was in camp. He never wore a shirt, and he always carried a beer. And I was lucky. After I came back, I found out he had twin daughters and stuff, and one of them lives in Reading, and I've been in touch with her. Then I was in touch with his other daughter. I talked to his wife after I come home and let him know what I knew about it. And I was fortunate I've been invited to Reading to talk to them, and I stay in touch with them via Facebook and stuff. But it's quite an honor to talk to these people. Yeah.
Yes. Some very interesting personalities. A lot of these guys have ended up in the Special Forces because they couldn't get security clearances to go on into the other intelligence branches.
Right.
And they fought in World War II. Some of them fought in the German army.
Yeah.
Some of them had fought in the resistant forces, the Polish or the Finns, Norwegians, or who have you.
Master Sergeant Zozniak was one of those individuals. He was. When I found out, he was actually from Canada, but he was with the Polish background and stuff, and he was with the Polish underground.
Wow.
Quite a story, but he didn't live long enough to where you really find that out.
Yeah.
And it was, when you wear the Green Beret, you just awe of other people, because sometimes you wonder, am I that?
Yeah.
I'm honored to be associated with them.
Yeah.
It's a whole new life.
Yeah, it is. Brent, how many of these stories had you heard?
Most of them. I hadn't heard the tank one. Most of them. It's I try to get him to talk about them when I can. It's few and far between, but.
Well, we're here at the National Special Forces Association convention here at Jantzen Beach, and it's been terrific weather. It's been a great location. It's now just finishing up. There were about 500 old soldiers here.
That's correct.
And most all of them now have, the knee joints don't work so well anymore.
You're slow to get up and fast to sit down.
Well, yeah, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And moving in any kind of speed in order, double timing, that was long.
Yeah.
But there's still that camaraderie.
The camaraderie that's the whole purpose of the conference, is that you have people that haven't seen each other.
Yeah.
When I was in South Carolina last year, I was able to work the registration desk, and I saw this name, Sergeant Frank Dooms. And I thought, okay, it's the same one. So I happened to look over there walking out. There was Frank Dooms. He was the radio operator at Long Bay that I talked to.
Wow.
I hadn't seen him since 1968, in March of 68, 2 months after they were overrun, and he was medevaced out and he came back. And I just haven't seen him there at the conference. A lot of things.
You know, it's always struck me, and certainly when you and I served together, was for all these people, it was never about the money.
That's right.
It was never about the career. I mean, and there were guys that were career soldiers.
That's right.
But they had the career, they had that sort of thing. But it was not about them advancing in a career. It was not about, certainly not about making any money or getting any kind of benefits. That all just sort of
That's
happened.
right, yes.
Coincidentally happened. But it was really about that camaraderie. It was about the other men.
Exactly. Well, first of all, to go through the training that's set up for it, and to graduate from that, and when they give you the Green Beret,
Yeah.
you've achieved a certain goal in your life. And to me, that's as high as I can go,
Yeah.
because I've achieved it one step at a time, and if I tried it, if I failed, that's my problem.
Yeah.
But I succeeded, and on and on and on. And that's why I tried to stress to Brent and the other brothers, if you don't try it, you'll never know if you can do it.
Yeah.
And if you try it, then what's the next step? And by Brent with his football,
Yeah.
he tried it. Kylie talked his mom into letting him play
Yeah.
football at North Eugene, and that's how he proceeded upwards. If his mom hadn't allowed him to do that, Brent would never have done a lot of the stuff that he's accomplished. That's pretty great.
And never quit and never give up.
Never quit, never give up, and you always look. And I've advocated to the boys, never laugh at a grown man crying, because there's a reason that. And I took my middle son back to North Carolina to the wall, and he couldn't understand initially until he saw the people looking at the wall and what it meant to him.
Yeah.
And I think it's and with Brent being involved with me on the Special Forces Association, on the chapter, and seeing what we do, it's amazing. And he is now running marathons, and all the money donated that he's given back to the Green Beret Foundation, which goes towards the Green Beret family and friends. I mean, that's just totally amazing.
Well, it is. I mean, what a fitting way to close the convention.
Yeah.
Brent, thank you very much for coming out and volunteering.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Help with your, and I guess we'll get back to duck football. The time and all this,
It's always duck football
always
season.
about duck football,
Yeah.
What was that story that you had that you were telling me the brief back?
Yeah, Major General Rogers was here,
Oh.
Yeah.
and he was walking down. So we were meeting in this room here Friday night or so after
Saturday after the banquet.
After the banquet Saturday night.
Yeah.
And so he was walking by, and he's got this southern drawl.
Yeah.
And I met him in South Carolina. So Steve Kornacki, one of the other members, was here, and he invited him to come in and have a beer with us. So I said, okay, when he comes in, we all stand up and say, "Go Ducks,"
Yeah.
because I thought he was from Alabama, which he
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
So he come walking in there, 8 or 9 of us in there, we all jumped up, "Go Ducks," and he said, "That's all right, I went to Auburn."
Yeah.
Then he could start blaming. Then he started saying,
And then immediately
"We
brought
beat
up
ya."
the national championship game.
Yeah, but he had a certain sense of humor, and I thought that was good. He got back on us.
Yeah. Well,
But yeah, but I in my career I met so many talented people, and so, it sticks with you all your life.
right.
And seeing these people here, some can hardly walk, some can hardly breathe, and you look at them and then you go back and say, my God, what did they do 40, 50 years ago?
Yeah.
And with the 3 Medal of Honor recipients we had here, and you look at them, you talk to them, how do you mess up to their standards?
Yeah.
But they just happened to be at the wrong place at the right time, and what they did was just unbelievable.
And they're very humble men too.
Very humble, yeah. You talk to them, they're just doing their job. They were doing what they trained to do.
Right.
And they got in a situation and they excelled at it. And I think any Green Beret in Vietnam at that time would have done the same thing.